Good afternoon. Welcome to Planning and Land Use Management Committee. We have several items in front of us. Just go through the agenda and I'll look at what we can move on consent and what needs to be continued based on the advice of the council and the various departments. Item number 5, we could continue November 3rd, 2009. Item number 6 is called special. And our speaker cards, we're doing okay. Number 7, I believe we can move on consent. Number 8, we can receive and file in as much as the applicant has withdrawn the application. Number 9, I believe we can call special. Number 10 is special. Number 11 will continue to 45 days. Number 12 will continue November 3rd. Number 13 will continue 1 week. Now looking at the cards, item 1 we'll call special, given the cards that have been submitted. Item 2 we could, items 2, 3, and 4, what I'd like to do is call that special, that I believe the staff can shed some light on what these items can do for our city in terms of its process and community plan. It's important to put that out on public record and to inform our community stakeholders on the different tools that have been developed, so we can do a very short briefings on 2, 3, and 4. Card number 6, we called special already, I believe. And 13, did we call special 13? We continue that for 1 week, but we do have cards on item 13. So those are here for item 13. It's been continued for 1 week, but since you made the trip here, I wanted to know if you still felt compelled to speak, even though we're going to cover it next week. We have Doug Haynes, Richard Potkin, Robert Blue, and Zaylee Cruz. This has been continued for 1 week. Okay. Okay. So, Mr. Wright, so if we can continue this 1 week, the folks that are here, we can have a full discussion next week. We'll be prepared. Okay. So those of you that are here, if you would like to make a statement, then we'll just wait till we get to 13. So we'll just wait till we get to 13. All right. Roberto, what does that put us?
I believe item 1, Councilman, it's Councilman Weezar's motion requesting planning, the city clerk, and ITA to report back on the special version of the LA City Planning Early Notification System.
Okay, so we get the planning department. Hi.
Good afternoon. I'm Miranda Pastor with the Office of the City Clerk, and the early notification system has been developed or completed by the Planning Department. They've developed it so that the reports come out specific for the business improvement districts. Barbara is handing out a sample of the report currently.
So this provides the okay.
There's a list of the applications from the Planning Department for each bid.
Okay.
If you look on the report, it shows like which bids have applications that were filed, and if it doesn't have any, it shows 0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. And colleagues, this is a motion that I had introduced back in March to have our bids get the early notifications on planning matters, just as our neighborhood councils receive them there. And our bids had gotten a wish list together asking the city council to move on some items that would help them in the work they do to ensure that our bids are involved in the city processes and provide the best service possible to their members. And as you know, bids play a very important role in our city, given, especially now, given the economic situation where we have less and less available public services for basic community needs. Our bids play a very important role, and this early notification system will help bids be more involved, be more supportive, and vice versa. I think we've gone 2 presentations to Plum already, and we've accomplished this task and now have a system going. I want to thank Miranda and Iris from planning as well for their wonderful work and your attentiveness to this matter. I know you are all busy, and especially with some personnel taking furlough days these days. There's additional work, additional stuff piling up on everyone's desk. But thank you for your attention to this matter. This was dealt with rather swiftly and very well, I think. I would hope in the future we could probably get a presentation on the progress, anything we need to improve upon this system. And we'll work, my office will work with your office to make that happen here in Plum. But thank you for your work. This was just an item to report back, and they're reporting back that the process is up and going. And you will notify the bids. I know you're working with the bids on this, so they will now be aware of the due process where they get early notifications. Correct?
As of Monday, October 5th, each bid was mailed out or emailed out their report. So it'll be ongoing on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of each month. They will automatically receive the report. I also wanted to take an opportunity to indicate that Lori Hughes, the chairperson of the Los Angeles Bid Consortium, wanted to thank the planning department, in particular Eva Juan McDaniels and Eva San from Planning Systems Section, System and GIS Division, for their assistance in working with us, the City Clerk's Office.
Great. Thank you very much.
Great.
Thanks.
Now, in terms of, so you represent the city clerk, in terms of the planning department, is there anything else that needs to be done, or are we pretty much, the system's off the ground, it's now operating?
The system is off the ground and operating. I was discussing with Eva Sun that it would be nice that if we can have a subscription service where if some of the stakeholders wanted to subscribe to the notice that they could also, and she was saying the software is already in place and that wouldn't be anything difficult. But basically the system that was requested is up and running, and that would be the next step if we wanted to progress farther.
Great. Again, thank you for your hard work and the staff and everyone involved. And thank you, Councilman Rizal, for your leadership on this matter.
Thank you.
We do have Dr. Clyde Williams. Good afternoon, sir.
Dr. Clyde Williams, 4115 Barrett Road, El Sereno, Northeast LA. The most important part here is more timely notification. More timely. Why does the community impact statement seldom be filled in? It's always none submitted, none submitted. Why? Because it takes neighborhood councils at least 2 months to get any sort of impact statement prepared and submitted. What will the business districts do faster? Because at most they'll have a week, maybe 10 days notice, and maybe like some issues today, it will be postponed, or maybe they'll have enough time. But most of the early notifications, the clerk's referrals, don't give enough time for it to be considered by committee, approved by the board, and submitted, either in the business districts or in the neighborhood councils. So it's nice to put it in, and you can have a business district submittal, impact statement submittal, but it'll never be filled in. So if it could be given a month's notice as to what's going to go on in a committee, fine. Elsewise, it's not timely. Sorry.
Okay, so in terms of timing, what is the timing on the notification? What are we looking at? given the comments from Dr. Williams?
Well, our notices are based on legal requirements. Generally, the Brown Act requirement for the agenda is 72 hours unless it's a special meeting, at which time it's a 24-hour notice. So if there are items on the agenda that are not legally required items, unless they are items that would require an owner or a property owner to be aware of it, we don't send out notices.
Okay. So the Brown Act was defining the notification.
Or a legal requirement. It could be municipal code, state law, or other legal requirement.
Our clerk who was here, do you mind coming to the microphone? When given the observation that we just heard, when we talk about early warning, how is early warning or the term early being defined? How early is early, I guess, is the question.
From what I understand, the planning department, as individuals are submitting applications, then on that second Tuesday of the month, those notifications of those applications are sent out in a report to the business improvement districts. In terms of the clerk's notification, in terms of reports, I don't want to overstep.
Okay, so we're talking about two different
Well, I'm sorry.
procedures.
I need to clarify one thing, because actually, in speaking, my name is Barbara Greaves, for the record. The early notification that the clerk has been early notification for every individual that signs up for it, and specifically for neighborhood councils. All neighborhood councils or any individual right now can subscribe to any file of interest or any subject matter, and they'll get a personal notification. That would be an electronic notification. But as far as mail-in notices or mail notices, we only do those for legal requirements.
What I'm looking for, I just want to understand the difference, and if we could just define what early means in the context of what we're addressing today with the BID notification. Is it parallel to what the clerk of the planning committee is stating, or is it different or more advanced?
It's totally different. It's more advanced. These applications are submitted to planning, and unless there's a council action that's required, or if there is one that's required, then this notification comes far in advance of a notice or a report that would go to council requesting a zone variance or some other activity that would be required, what council approval would be required. The other thing I was going to mention is the referral notices. Are those still going out?
Yeah, but
the referral notices would give the neighborhood councils notice, adequate notice of when an item is being referred for council's consideration.
Okay, so that's...
And that's more than the 72 hours. As they are referred to committees, that notice is available and individuals can subscribe to that notice.
So it can range between a week to 2 weeks depending on when the work is being produced.
Right, exactly.
Okay. So I just want to make sure we distinguish the two. Thank you very much.
Can I say just one more thing, Councilman? I know you want to proceed with the meeting. I need to let Mr. Richardson know if he's interested in any particular subject. He doesn't have to wait till the agenda is released. He can sign up for that particular subject matter, and that way he can either submit the impact statement or any other statement that will be uploaded. It is available online.
Okay, that's good to know.
All right.
So that way, if a person is interested in a subject matter, they have the option to be proactive and getting it even earlier than what the BID is doing. Okay, so that option is there. Okay, thank you very much. Again, in the quest of being transparent, that's important. Roberto, next.
Your action would be, since the work is already being done, I imagine to note and file the motion.
Would you like another update on this, or
do you want another update?
My office will work with both the clerk and the planning department, and at the appropriate time, ask that we get a presentation in council with the, in plan with the cooperation of the chair.
So we'll keep the motion alive then.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll
roll it over.
Continue. You'd like to continue this item?
Well, we probably don't anticipate an update for another 6 months or so.
6 months.
Is that?
So we'll get a status in 6 months.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, the next.
The next item, council members, is a draft ordinance that was recommended by the City Planning Commission to establish a community plan implementation overlay district and a new supplemental use district as well.
So let's cover 2, 3, and 4. So do you want to do 2, 3, and 4?
Number 3, Councilman, again, it's a draft ordinance. This one is to create a ground floor commercial zoning tool that will prohibit 100% residential uses on the ground floor. And number 4, again, another draft ordinance to create a pedestrian emphasis design zoning designator, in which will incorporate also urban design standards.
Okay, thank you. Please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Reyes, members of the committee, Betsy Wiseman for the Planning Department. These items, although they're separate items on your agenda, all 3 of them are ordinances that we will be using to implement the new community plans. We appreciate giving you a little extra information about them this afternoon because they're extremely important tools. What's in front of you today are really enabling ordinances. As we do the community plan programs, the new ones, these will enable us to tailor the regulations for individual selected portions of communities, and the plans themselves are policy documents. These are really the regulations that implement and give the teeth to the policies. So Chris will explain in more detail what each of the 3 tools is and give some examples about how you can expect to see them applied in the different neighborhoods and communities.
Okay, Christopher Kuntz, a city planner with the community planning section. To go through the tools one by one, to step back, all the community planners met and looked at, if you think of a toolbox and you can't build something unless you have the tools, we looked at what tools we're currently missing to take a very well-written community plan and actually implement it and have those policies actually be effective on the ground from project by project. The first such tool is called a community planning implementation overlay, which is similar to a tool we have today called the Q condition, but much more effective because, one, it'll relate directly to the community plan that we work extensively on outreach, and those plans are documents that reflect the goals of the community. And this tool will allow you to take a district or set of parcels and have specific regulations in addition to the underlying zone. So as an example, in Mr. Weezar's district, as we look at Mariacha Plaza and the TOD development, CPIO would allow specific design regulations, transitions from the adjacent residential uses, a mix of uses that the community wants, as well as incorporating identity and factors that are reflective of the surrounding community. And those are things that you can't do with an existing zone or with an existing Q condition. And likewise in other areas, be it Ventura Boulevard or Victory or somewhere where you're trying to have additional restrictions and guiding principles so that the development reflects the goals and policies in the community plan. So that's the first tool. The second tool is the ground floor commercial tool. As you know, throughout the city, our commercial zones allow you to build either residential or commercial development in a commercial zone. And that is, that flexibility is dynamic and a great thing. But there are districts where you want a functioning ground floor to provide community retail and services and provide for the community. So for example, when you think of York Boulevard through Highland Park, it's a vibrant shopping and community serving district, and this tool would allow you to guarantee that those commercial uses were always there and that new projects didn't come in with entirely 100% residential. This would require that they contain a ground floor commercial component while still allowing for the upper floor residential component. And the final tool, which is called the Pedestrian Emphasis Design Tool, provides the very basic standards that you want for a walkable community. So if you're looking at a commercial district, it does just a few things. It requires that the building be brought out to the street. It provides that the building consists of transparent materials, a transparent storefront, and it requires that there be a front door for pedestrians to use from that street into that commercial business. We think that's appropriate in many locations. If you think of Eagle Rock Boulevard or you think of other locations throughout the community, we're trying to create walkable street frontages, and this tool will allow us to do that. So that's our opening presentation, and we'd like to take questions.
When I want to first compliment the planning staff, your work, getting us to this place. And there's been a long history in how we handle the volume of work that occurs here in Los Angeles, especially after the AB 283 process. There's a lot of batching and cleaning up, and changes were occurring in neighborhoods, and people were asking, well, how did that happen? And you figured out there's a queue there, and figured out, well, how did it get there? And these are the idiosyncrasies that create a lot of distrust and suspicion. But given these tools, this can happen in such a way where the community advocates, those that participate in the community plan process, can have this tool. And I start, the analogy I was using before when we met on this was, it's kind of like a canvas. A community has a series of brushes and paints. It can start actually articulating a scenario using these specific tools that allow us to make these changes or preserve different elements within our community. So I thank you for that, and I'm hoping that as my colleagues continue to support the planning department, and we should know, colleagues, that I've only gotten 2 letters from the other council members as they're stating their priorities for what they want to do in their district. And I'm hoping more council members respond, the deputies that are here for their respective council offices. Encourage your council member to state what is their priority, because as we go through these changes and with budget constraints, how we prioritize our work is going to be significant. But these tools add our ability and capacity, so it's added value, and it gives us a clear sense of how we engage the uniqueness of our communities. Any questions from my colleagues on this matter? Saying none, thank you so much. And we would ask the city attorney to prepare the ordinance to move these particular items on items 2, 3, and 4.
I have some technical amendments on 3 and 4. I don't know if the department wants to explain those. They're on the desk.
There is one just technical typo in the text, and that was distributed to you. And with that correction, the city attorney should be ready to go.
Yes, we got it right here. Okay. So with those amendments, we can proceed. So it covers 2, 3, and 4. 5 have been continued. And what's next, Roberto? 6?
6 council members is a report from the Planning Commission. It's a proposed general plan amendment, zone change, and height district change. It proposes to demolish a retail center and build a mixed-use 150-unit project in CD2.
Okay, we have our staff.
Good afternoon. Excuse me. Frank Kwan with the City Planning Department. I was the hearing officer for the subject case. The items before committee, I'm sorry, is my voice coming in?
Just a little bit closer to the mic, and that'll be good.
Okay, thank you. The items for review today are a general plan amendment, a zone change, and a height district change. The City Planning Commission made a very thoughtful and review and recommendation of conditions on these T, Qs, and Ds. Throughout the process for this particular project, this is the Plaza project in North Hollywood. There was resounding support from the neighborhood council, and the city council office. The project itself is a net 1.3 million square feet project of mixed use, including 150 residential units to occupy approximately 200,000 square feet, 1.1 million square feet of commercial uses, including a hotel, office, movie theater, and retail. There is an option to provide 200 square feet of residential in lieu of the commercial that is made up of this project. However, that is an option that the applicant may exercise in the future. Staff recommends approval of the project with conditions required by the City Planning Commission.
Okay.
Bill,
Thank you,
questions?
sir. We do have Mr. Thresh. All the cards that have been submitted are in support, but I'd like to hear from Mr. Thresh if he would like to make a comment on behalf of the council. And we do have a letter from Mr. Miller of the CLA, who is currently, as they would say, the caretaker of the district. Mr. Thresh.
Good afternoon, Chairman Reyes, members of the committee. My name is Dale Thrush. I'm Planning Deputy for Council District 2. As Mr. Kwan indicated, this project has been going on now for about 2 years with the very, very strong support of the council office and the community. I think both the neighborhood council and the Residents Association or the Neighborhood Association are strongly in support, and they have a number of representatives here today. Just by way of context, I wanted to just let you know, in case it's not obvious from the nature of the application, that this is a very rare project. It is both large in scale and consistent with the city's planning goals and objectives. It respects the general plan framework by intensifying an area that is already designated for intensification. It improves the city's jobs housing balance by locating thousands of new jobs in the valley, where it will reduce commute times for valley residents who work on the project. It is transit oriented, so it will actually take cars off of our streets and put riders on the Orange Line. It creates a town center and a sense of place for the community of Valley Glen. And perhaps most importantly, this is the community's plan. The applicant worked with the community over dozens and dozens of meetings at which we were pleased to attend, but I think it is fair to say that what came out of that process is a plan that was essentially the community's plan. And so Council District 2 asks you to approve the plan. However, we have some suggested modifications that I believe Mr. D'Antona will address. And those modifications really bring the project back to what the community designed and supported all through the process. And with that, I'll ask Mr. D'Antona to talk about the specifics.
Okay, so we have a duet here.
Yeah.
All right.
Hi, Jim D'Antona, Council District 2. Just a quick overview. We have some technical amendments, some language clarifications in there that we've submitted as part of our letter on page 2. Planning has agreed that most of these are just technical clarifications, and they have concurred to make those changes. There are 2 items that deal with massing and height that the planning department felt this body would have to make the determination on, so we are asking that you adopt the amendments as part of your action. Again, all of the items spelled out, 90% are already agreed to by planning, but by adopting all of these, the language will be clear in the way that we've laid them out. Planning's had some alternative language, but agree in concept. And we think that the City Planning Commission, in trying to design the project, did some things that will compress the open spaces, the plazas. There's some beautiful plazas in this that the community really fought for and support, and we want to make sure those stay. If the height implications and massing that CPC identified are adhered to, I think those plazas, we know those plazas, and open spaces will have to kind of be squashed and push buildings into them. So we would ask that you adopt the amendments that we've in our language, and that way we can get the project community supported and one that will enhance the community. So I can go into them detail by detail, but you can see that with no cards in opposition, a 1.5 million square foot project.
When I'm relishing the moment, this is very rare. So This is a great moment. So
it's rare, and so it's truly.
This is a historic occasion for me as a chair of this committee. But any questions from my colleagues on this?
Just the amendments you're proposing, those are the amendments that the developer worked out with the community?
Correct,
So
yeah.
they're
So what, in the, just a slight detail, the City Planning Commission made height adjustments along Victory, where this community, we wanted to push that height up towards Victory, which everybody knows is almost a freeway itself. The City Planning Commission wanted to push that height more towards the middle of the community would rather have that up on the front. So it's really just dealing with massing. The square footage is the same. The layout is exactly the same as what was planned. So there won't be any adjustment from what CPC did other than pushing that massing forward.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
Yes, I do.
Yes, Mr. Gentile.
This is the property on Victory Boulevard adjacent to the wash where a number of units were torn down.
Correct.
Apartment
Well,
buildings.
this is a sister project to that, but yes, there was one that was units torn down where another project, which again received full support of the community. There's a new project going in on that site, and then right next door is this project.
What project is facing Victory? What project is that? Facing Victory west of the wash.
That is, it's called the Glen. It's two projects called the Glen at the Plaza. So it's done by the same developer. They have that frontage.
What's that going to occupy? What's going to be there? What's the plan for
Mixed
that?
use, 2 floors of commercial, 3 floors of residential? 2 and 2. 2 floors of commercial, 2 floors of residential. So again, mixed use right there. It should incorporate well into the transit plaza that they're planning right in the middle there to really bring people to the site and be able to take them away. It's a really great opportunity for such a large parcel, which, you know, in the valley, we don't get a lot of chances to do some real big planning. It's usually on small parcel by parcel process.
And then there's a shopping center east of that location.
That's this.
Well, there's already a shopping center there. Is that going to be taken down?
Yes.
Where there used to be a bank on the corner and a...
Citibank, there's a Golan restaurant.
So that whole thing, yeah, the Golden Restaurant.
Right.
So that whole area is what we're discussing. That's going to be taken down.
Correct.
Okay. The question I have, 2 of them. Number 1, traffic mitigation, because I travel Victory frequently.
Sure.
Commuting east and west in the valley because the Ventura Freeway is always jammed. What is the plan for traffic mitigation in that particular area? And the other one is the alcohol that they're calling for 9 locations. It doesn't state what those locations, the names, just that restaurant and bar, et cetera, to give blanket approval for ABC without knowing what's going to go in there and the crime in that particular district. Has that all been sorted out?
Yeah, well, I'll start with the
Traffic.
There's been a lot of traffic mitigation as part of this. The operator, similar to what you're familiar with, the TDMs and TMOs of Warner Center, they're applying that same theory here. We're going to have a TDM, traffic management office, set up to deal with projects that come in and be part of the transit plaza to have transit coming in and out. The applicant's, I think, going to throw up a picture to show exactly how we're doing it. They're rerouting a bus route. MTA is actually rerouting a bus to go right through here along with the Victory line that goes through there is also going to stop in this transit plaza. They also have the Orange Line, a shuttle that they're personally going to run to the Orange Line and back as part of the T conditions. The main issue that came out of the environmental was traffic, of course. So they have committed to a lot of improvements to bring mass transit to this site. I think the DOT was comfortable with all of the mitigations that they were proposing.
Are they going to install any additional signals to control east-west traffic on Victory?
There was 8 to 19 intersections where they will be doing traffic improvements, and then there were others that were mitigated by the use of mass transit.
Okay.
Alcohol license, I think, again, they didn't have an exact count as to who was going to be in those, what hours. Those have to come back as a plan approval but through the planning department in order for them to utilize the conditional use. So it's not really a blanket because it won't give them the hours. It doesn't necessarily tell them how it's limited. So they gave them a general guidance that this is how many we would allow, but to get the technical specifications of each use, they're going to have to come back to the planning department to file plan approvals for those.
So each one of those locations will have to then receive review to decide, because I noticed in here it talks about the hours up to 11 p.m., and they talk about a hotel and banquets, and oftentimes they go past 11. So
Right.
every ABC location, the 9 ABC locations, will have to go through another review and conditions imposed.
Yeah, to make sure, because again, we wouldn't want to allow one's adult entertainment or anything that allows, so we wanted to make sure those controls were already set, and it was important to the community that we're looking at real restaurants and not, 9 nightclubs
Right.
Going in.
And what
So,
about the crime picture in there?
there is some crime stat. The crime actually has gone down due to the reduction in that project that was right next door. There was serious gang issues in there. But on site, the applicant is providing security office ranger stations to help patrol the wash, to help deal with the issues right in that area. So they'll have full-time security on site. And they've offered LAPD a spot, but clearly LAPD was not interested in having a satellite office there. They're dealing obviously with the issues of hiring.
What about
officers.
neighborhood council, to have a neighborhood council office there?
Well, the office that they've identified actually says it can be used for, depending on who wants to use it, Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, Neighborhood Council. I think they have some community room space in addition to that has been part of it too. So when the applicant, we literally sent him out to 36 meetings, and then he had to do another 64, or like 100 meetings with the community to really let them know what was going on. And they put him through the ringer and came up with this project, and I think they got a lot of things that they felt like will really benefit the community, and that was like one of them, the community space.
Was a senior center discussed,
No.
or any
Well,
activity?
not that I'm aware of.
Any facilities for senior citizens?
Not specifically for seniors, just community room space.
And how large for the community room space?
I'll leave that to the applicant,
Okay, because there's neighborhood councils, they're always looking for places to meet.
always.
There's senior citizen groups that keep expanding and asking for rooms to have meetings. I know we're struggling with that in the West Valley to try and find some space.
And
Westfield's going to provide that for us on their project to build a community room. We're just trying to accommodate the population, and it's obviously in that area growing older, along with other parts of the city, and to have some facilities for them.
Absolutely. And again, it may be also inclusive of the space next door, the Glen, so that whole area to be used for community-based. And again, I think Neighborhood Council had that as part of their concerns and issues. And the current applicant actually lets lots of art festivals in the Golan, the one that exists today, holds art festivals and all sorts of community events on the site and allows the community to use those spaces already. So it's already part of something he does. He's actually a resident of this neighborhood.
And the businesses that are there in the shopping center, are many of those going to be relocated to the SNU, or are they going to be displaced?
I think from what my understanding is, there are several that would have to relocate here, and there's others that would relocate to other sites. There's
And
a couple
is consideration given to them as we do when we convert a condo?
Yeah, I think in fact they have leases already, so even if he didn't want to, I think he's forced to do so.
How many acres between the two projects?
I know it's 12, 12 for the big one and 5 for the other.
17 acres.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we do have quite a few comment cards that it's going to encourage us to support this, but I think you're getting a pretty good sense of where we're going to go. But I'd like to invite the folks who really feel compelled that they need to speak. This could almost be anticlimactic given I don't know how many meetings you've had already, but if there's something you'd like to share with us, we're more than happy to hear from you, but I think we're ready to vote. So it's up to you.
Before we vote, no, do you want to hear from the public?
I'm asking them if they want to spend more time here and beat the traffic, or
before we vote, yes.
yes,
Whichever way it's going to be.
No, the way I see it, if we can move on this now, I think I know what we're going to do. It sounds all positive, but it's up to you. We have quite a few cards here, and it's up. We'll give the thumbs up, and no, everything's in support. No.
We can't have an affirmative all the way because that wouldn't be democracy. You always have some dissension.
Okay, then vote no, Dennis.
The developer likes that.
I'm ready to move that we essentially support this project with the amendments that have been defined by the deputies that are covering the planning discipline of this district, and that would be my motion. Do we have a second? Yeah, they have two. So, that a yes? So, 3 yeses on this project. I want to say congratulations to you. You're very wise people, and I thank you for being here. Thank you very much. Next item, Roberto. Thank you.
Council members, item 9, it's a zone change, and it's for a consistency zoning along the entire block in CD9.
Okay.
Yes, Councilman, it's a consistency zoning application.
Okay. Do you have a staff on this one?
Yes.
Yes, we do. Andrew Montalegre.
Take it away. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. This is sorry, I have 2 items on today's. I have to focus. This is a zone change for the LA Mart on Washington Boulevard. There is no new construction. It's a zone change from MR1 to QM1 in order to have more flexibility in uses at the LA Mart, specifically to have more, I believe it's retail, which is at the moment not allowed there. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. No construction. There was some discussion on landscaping, but I think the applicant and the council office are going to...
Well, I understand the council office has 2 conditions that it wants to modify. Condition 6 requests that the phrase "and an irrigation system" be deleted, and condition 8 delete condition 8 in its entirety. Are you familiar with that request?
I just saw that a few minutes ago and I read it. I was just made aware of it 10 minutes ago.
Are you in agreement?
That's fine.
That's fine. Okay. We do have 2 speaker cards. Any questions to our staff? Seeing none, we do have 2 cards in favor, Mark Furlett and Jeff Haber. You feel compelled to speak, come on up to the microphone. If you don't, I would like to move that we support the recommendations from the staff with the language as proposed by the staff. Do I have a second on that, Hussein? Okay, no action this committee. Next item?
And you included Ms. Perry's recommendations, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We folded in the 2 recommendations.
Okay.
Condition 6, request that the phrase "and an irrigation system" be deleted, and condition 8 to be deleted altogether.
Yes, the next item, council members, is a zone change application in CD14 for the construction of 4 single-family homes, and there will be each 2 stories, and will include a 2-car garage.
Okay. I don't have any cards on this.
For it to be...
Okay.
Especially Mr.
Councilmember?
Yeah, is the applicant here on this item?
Will the applicant please come to the microphone, give us your name and address? Come on up.
Good afternoon. My name is Hector Ochoa, and I'm here to regarding this zone change to build 4 houses.
Okay.
Councilmember, you have any questions?
Yes. Was this item presented to the neighborhood council? This is in El Sereno, correct?
Yes.
And was it presented to the neighborhood council?
It was not.
It was not, okay. Typically, when we work with applicants who are applying for these types of developments in the community, we ask that they contact the local neighborhood council and make a presentation. In this case, it was not. Did anybody mention that to you along the process?
Hello, this is Linda Smith, city planning staff on the case. We have to keep in mind that this was before the East Los Angeles Area Planning Commission in 2007. And at that time, we did not instruct the applicants to meet with the neighborhood council. They went directly to the Area Planning Commission meeting. But that was the process in 2007 when this was actually approved by the Area Planning Commission.
Okay. And also my staff, we reviewed it on paper but didn't have an opportunity to speak with the applicant. I would ask, Chair, we could continue this item for 45 days and request the applicant to meet with the neighborhood council. Either the planning department or my staff could give you that information as to who to contact and get it agendized with the neighborhood council.
I'd like to accommodate the request. Would we need a letter, or do we have the time to do that? Do we need a letter from the applicant giving us or do we have the flexibility?
Well, Barbara Greaves, City Clerk's office, the time limit is not until December on this.
Okay, so we have the time.
We have time to hear if we consider it in the next 45 days.
I would hope that we could honor the councilman's request in 45 days, and then we can move from there.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that?
Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Sir, okay. And is this on a hillside?
Not all of it. It's only like one house. Basically, the whole area it's considered hillside, but like the last house I proposed to build is partial hillside. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we just need a better understanding of this project so we could have the continuance. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so
my staff will work with you on this.
Thank you.
We'll see you in 45 days, sir. Okay, that's what's next?
I believe it would be the last item, Councilman, item 13, which is the appeal submitted by Andrew Schwartz and the La Mirada Group. I don't know if they wanted to speak.
Okay, so it's been a continuing week, and Mr. Wright, let's come on up. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, council members. Daniel Wright of the Silverstein Law Firm, 215 North Marengo, Pasadena, 91101. On behalf of the appellant La Mirada Avenue Neighborhood Association of Hollywood, the target project that was continued until next week needs much more work than 1 week. In fact, it requires an EIR instead of an MND. The Hollywood Studio District Neighborhood Council is on record opposed to this project in its current form. In the record, La Mirada has already submitted 700 pages of technical expert analysis documenting the CEQA and municipal code violations here. So today, especially because we've continued this matter and we'll make no decision today, I just want to talk about a couple of broad themes in the time left. Target has on its wall at its entrances a slogan that claims that it invests $1 million each day to causes in the communities it serves. Totally contrary to this feel-good citizenship slogan is how Target absolutely refused to meet with the community to mitigate the multiple significant negative impacts of this project. The Neighborhood Council offered to fly a delegation of representatives to Minnesota to meet with Target and offered to conduct a teleconference with Target officials to discuss project alternatives. Those offers were flatly refused. The subject project is a 4-acre site at the southwest corner of Western and Sunset. The community is not opposed to a well-designed project within the limits of the Vermont Western Transit-oriented specific plan. The plan limits height to 35 feet, and Target refuses to reduce its design from nearly 80 feet in height for the length of almost an entire city block. The specific plan represents the community's consensus on development in this corridor, and the Central Area Planning Commission's approval of 8 exceptions to the specific plan represents a complete abandonment of real planning by our Planning Commission. Perhaps the cause of this is that the council office may have encouraged Target to go up instead of going down. Target put their store underground in West Hollywood at La Brea. Why won't they do it here? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Well, sure.
And briefly, I know my question could take up a long time, but just briefly, now, it's an M&D, and you say it requires an EIR, and what's your reasoning for that?
Some of the issues that have been identified by the community, the big one is traffic. If you look at some of if you or your staff look at the traffic stuff that La Mirada has submitted, other projects in the immediate vicinity show much worse traffic conditions at intersections than a traffic report produced for Target in this MND. It appears to be a cursory and not a credible traffic study. And we have submitted for the record expert testimony to the contrary. So there's definitely a fair argument on traffic alone. Furthermore, the project at 80 feet will block scenic vistas of the Hollywood sign and the observatory and the hills. And the response of staff is that the only view of the hills is along the corridor of the street. There's a ton of photographic evidence submitted by La Mirada that counters that claim. This is an easy case to win if it goes to court because the MND is clearly insufficient here.
Okay, and I know we've actually dealt with a number of issues in my district, but what's the standard from which we use an MND to an EIR? Like, when is that required? You're saying that traffic is the main reason why you think an EIR should be required because there's a substantial impact. But what generally is when will we do an MND, when will we do an EIR?
Well, yes, you could check with your city attorney, but as I understand it, it's especially when you have impacts that cannot be mitigated through the use of the MND process, then you would have to make findings of overriding significance.
Okay, so we go through the MND and then we determined whether there are impacts that cannot be mitigated to substantiate further environmental review, which would mean an EIR. Is that?
Yes, you could waste your time continuing to do an MND, or you could order an EIR because the traffic appears to be so bad that there's no way to approve it, no way to mitigate it. Okay. And I think Mr. Haynes may be able to address this in his comments as well, okay. But that, MND is a project that's fully mitigated beneath the levels of significance on all issues, is my understanding. Okay. And if you've got a bad situation here, like what this project looks like, the only way to approve it would be, at least in its current form, it would be with an EIR. Of course, the community could support this project if they just especially went underground on this project.
And my final question, the height restriction you mentioned is how much in this area?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
The height restriction in this area
for commercial only, the height restriction is 35 feet, and there are 35-foot projects right across the street from this. The OSH is.
And how much is being proposed?
Almost 80 feet high, and it's because they're putting parking. Two levels of parking, and is it one level parking underneath the store? No, so it's a two-level store as well.
Great, thank you. I know we're going to continue this, but City Attorney, just generally, from our understanding, not only on this project but other projects, when is it that we use an M&D, or when would we use more analysis through an EIR? What's the standard for that?
Jerry Burge, City Attorney's Office. I apologize, I'm not the expert in CEQA, as you know. We have another division that handles those matters, but my understanding in this case is that the argument that appellants are making for the reason that an MND is not adequate is that they have raised a fair argument that an EIR should be prepared, and that is the legal standard.
A fair argument.
For when an EIR, an environmental impact report, should be prepared.
That's pretty broad, right? I mean, it's
I believe the courts have looked at it in a broad manner, but we can certainly have our CEQA attorneys come and discuss that with you, who know it a lot better than I do.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to say, if I may, we have expert traffic testimony in the record. Usually, if you've got a disagreement among experts, and there can be a fair argument of that minds could differ, you've got to do an EIR.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Wright, and this is probably just a side note here, but you mentioned that the neighborhood council was willing to fly out to Minnesota. We're going to fly out as individuals paid by individuals, or as a neighborhood council paid by the neighborhood council? I'm curious.
He wants to know whether or not the neighborhood council was going to propose to do that out of their budget or individually, out of their budget.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a couple questions on that. I think it would be inappropriate to use neighborhood council funds to fly to another state on a project. I want to put that on the record. That's not what neighborhood council funds were designed for, to have neighborhood council members use those funds to fly to argue a project in another state. Has the council office been involved in this, Council 13?
Yes.
What's been the approach from them with Target?
Well, as I was hinting, there seems to be some indication that the council office has encouraged this project to go up in complete violation of the specific plan. So,
Well, you were hinting, but have they gone on record supporting the project, or have they been supportive?
I think
of the neighborhood council?
Mr. Haynes could address that in his comments, but I believe, because he was there and heard exactly what council office said.
Is there anyone here from 13?
Well, and Councilmember Jerry Burge, City Attorney's Office, Council District 13 was here until the matter was continued until next week, and I'm sure they will be here next week.
All right. So they were going to speak, and then it was continued, so they left?
Right.
Okay, all right.
So this is out of courtesy, the fact that they came here and they were notified in the last second.
Okay.
And to make sure that they still have the flexibility to speak
Right.
today for the record, given that it was continuing last
You plan to
week.
come back next week?
Pardon?
You plan to come back next week?
I imagine that they will be, yes. This is an issue that's really important to this community.
I understand that, and it's a concern that the council office be involved in that at the same time. Are you being retained by the neighborhood council?
No.
Okay.
By the appellants, La Mirada Neighborhood Association of Hollywood.
And that's not the neighborhood council?
Correct. It's a private organization.
Okay, not with taxpayers' funds?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm not
Just
flying
wanted to make
anywhere.
the record straight.
I'm not flying anywhere.
Okay. Well, the traffic in LA, you don't fly anywhere anyway.
This is true.
All right, our next cards, thank you, sir. We have Doug Haynes, Richard Plotkin, and Robert Bull. Would you still like to speak? Come on up. And Ziggy Cruz.
Hi, Doug Haynes of the La Mirada Neighborhood Association. The other members who had signed cards have already left, so I'll just make a few comments really brief. First off, this isn't about trying to prevent a Target store from going in. I grew up in Roseville, Minnesota. I remember when the first Target store opened when I was a kid. I bought the gag toilet paper for my dad with $100 bills on it for Christmas. And, back then it was like a 99-cent store. And it's evolved into this massive retailer. And certainly it'd be something that'd be great for the community. And we look forward to that happening. But the concerns we have boil down really to three issues. And I've put into the record and for you a number of things that you'll be able hopefully to review over the next week. Additional CEQA arguments, and another traffic report from our traffic expert.
What was the first thing you said, sir?
Additional CEQA arguments.
Okay.
And then also, I did a breakdown of the project so you can see what the exceptions are and what the hardship claims by the applicant is. And then a few other items. Really what it comes down to on the three issues is the height and massing of the project. The scale is completely out of place with what the community wants and what the specific plan permits. We're Sunset and Western. We're a bedroom community of Hollywood. We're not Sunset and Vine. There's a radical difference between the two areas. As Mr. Wright expressed, Sunset and Western is all low-level, basically buildings with the exception of the Walgreens, which went in just a few years ago. But that's stepped back according to the specific plan in order to ensure that the massing doesn't overwhelm the street. The other issue is traffic. I mean, we need to have honesty about the traffic, and I've included photos for you to look at that show what the traffic is next to the 101 freeway in my neighborhood, and you have copies of that. Target said that the traffic at the on-ramp off Western Avenue is level C, which is light congestion, occasional backups. That's not realistic. But the Santa Plaza project, which is on Santa Monica Boulevard, assessed it in 2005 at level E and a feature of level F. And they only received a 5% transit credit. Target received a 20% transit credit. Santa Monica and Western has one of the highest bus boarding rates in the county. 3.6 million people board buses there every year. At the Metro Red Line, Hollywood and Western stop, they have about 1.5 million boardings per year. Hollywood Garfield project, which is one block from that, got a 5% credit too. Target got 20% credit. So somehow they came up with they're saying that the traffic will be less with Target than with the existing low-level uses. And the last thing real quick, all we're asking is for is the community to be more involved in this. That's all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Richard Plotkin? Nope. Ziggy Cruz? Nope. Okay. So I believe that covers everyone on this item, and it's been continued. Thank you for your patience. And Roberto, is public comment left?
Yes, Councilman, public comment.
We do have one call for public comment, and that's Mr. Wright.
Daniel Wright, 467 Crane Boulevard, taking my hat off. I wanted to make council members aware of work that I've been doing pro bono with the Coalition to Save the Vandecamps Coalition. Mr. Reyes will recall that we've met and discussed issues about the Vandecamps conversion from a real community college district campus to a set of leased buildings for a charter school, and actually programs of the City of Los Angeles Mayor's Office, or funded by the Mayor's Office. This is going to be and is a hot issue. We've done a very large Public Records Act request, and we've uncovered some troubling evidence that the district planned for a long time to convert this campus and to never perhaps open it as an educational institution, at least some of the administrators at the highest level. But when we talked, Councilmember Reyes, we talked about the issue of what are the city issues. A charter school in this particular zone is not allowed by right. This building, the new education building, has been leased out to a charter school. It opened on August 31st in the middle of a construction zone. We had ninth graders walking through the construction zone, and everyone else was wearing hard hats. And it's still a construction zone. In order for there to be a charter school there, it has to have a conditional use permit from the City of Los Angeles when the use is no longer a community college that's exempt from your zoning. When they change that use to a charter school or to leasing it out for other programs, they are now subject to your authority, and a conditional use permit is required. Perhaps the city attorney should be filing an action for non-compliance on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. And I do know that particular hotbed project's in my district, right at the corner of Fletcher and San Fernando. We will look into what is in front of us. I appreciate your insight. I think from the bigger picture point of view, education is needed. Vacant buildings can only create attractive nuisance. So there's a balancing point that we have to find in this dialogue. So stay tuned, and we'll keep working. Thank you very much. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.